All right, hi guys. So it's Anakra here, and today we're gonna be talking about Danielle Bregoli, aka Bhad Bhabie, and Lil Kim. I actually can't believe I'm talking about this because this is so hilarious. I never in my wildest dreams thought that the Catch Me Outside girl would be in the same sentence as Queen Bee Lil Kim. So basically, in the past few weeks, Daniel Bergoli kind of like made rounds in the social media realm, and especially among like commentators on YouTube because of her appearance. So basically, Miss Bad Baby has gradually changed from looking like a white girl, a suburban, maybe not suburban, but a white girl with maybe like Italian influences. You can even hear it from her name, to gradually appearing more and more racially ambiguous. But in the racial ambiguousness, that kind of like favors light skinned black women in the America, or Latino women. But basically, Miss Thing is trying to appear like she's with the culture. Not that she's with the culture, but that she's from the culture. And the funniest thing here is that Danielle Bregoli, since the beginning of her career on Dr. Phil, has basically built her career on cultural appropriation. So I think it's quite funny that it's only now that people are calling her out. It's only now that she's become this physical manifestation of it that people are becoming critical. Like even her whole tagline of catching me outside, how about that? I can't say that with a straight face. That was basically her imitating what she thought a black person behaved like. Yeah. So yeah, like I'm not shocked by this. I'm not shocked about this, and I don't even understand why other people are shocked about this, but I guess this speaks to a bigger trend of more and more of these influencers manipulating your looks to look like a completely different race. Danielle Bergoli, while trying to basically defend herself, compares herself to Lil Kim, and she says, you know what? There's no difference between what I'm doing and what Lil Kim is doing. But here's the thing, there's a massive difference. And we need to talk about this because quite often you hear a lot of black women receiving criticism for wearing weaves, for wearing their hair straight, and blah blah blah. People tend to make the statement that like, oh, you can't claim cultural appropriation if you are wearing a wig that kind of like emulates white ideals of beauty. But here's the main difference between Danielle Bergoli and Lil Kim, right? Danielle Bergoli lives in a society where she's the majority, right? Where even with all of the Kardashianness of the world right now and how beauty standards have been Kardashianified, and that's basically that like beauty standards have become they've been skewed towards a more ethnic appeal, but even in the sense that it fits in Eurocentric parameters, right? And like Lil Kim lives in a society where she's the minority, where her features are degraded constantly, where women like her are at the butt of the joke. So actually, there's two terms that refer to what these two people are doing, and yeah, so the term that refers to what Danielle Bergoli is doing is cultural appropriation, and the term that refers to what Lil Kim is doing is called cultural assimilation. Okay, cultural appropriation and cultural assimilation are two completely different things, even though on the surface they may appear to be one and the same thing. And the main differentiator between these two concepts is the reason, right? For the person doing this, right? It's like what actually differentiate these two terms are the reason behind the action. So for Danielle Bergoli, she just kind of like wants to emulate a different race that she's not, right? and so does Lil Kim. But Danielle Bregoli does so from a position of power, right? She's a white woman in a society where the majority of people are white and the majority of people who hold power are white. She's exercising her power, right? To take on different attributes of different cultures that she would like to like emulate. And then there's Lil Kim. Lil Kim's reason for doing this for wearing makeup that may be too light for her and for wearing weaves or whatever else that she does is because she's trying to fit in. She's a black woman who lives in a society that sees her at the bottom of society. So for her to move up, to climb up the social ladder, she felt the need to obviously change her appearance, to make her appearance seem more like the women in power, right? So that's kind of like the bottom, the baseline between these two things. And you may say that, okay, well, nobody's really forcing Lil Kim to change her looks, right? But the thing is that there are societal pressures all around us that constantly tell black women that, they should change their looks. So there are societal pressures that constantly tell black women to look different from what they look like. And some of these pressures have actually been added into regulations, like in schools we see that black people for the longest time weren't allowed to wear their hair in its natural state. We also see this in like workplaces where people deem black people's hair as unprofessional, and there were actual regulations with actual punishments for being black in its natural form. A lot of black women who have my haircut right here would be called bald headed, even though I chose this haircut myself, right? You see a lot of girls, a lot of white girls that also cut their hair, but you're seen as edgy and cool. But I do not get that same like treatment for having a really short haircut, right? Like I've even had people ask me if it's a cultural thing, which is so funny because nobody goes around asking white girls who've cut their hair like if cutting their hair is a cultural thing. Like it doesn't happen anywhere. So yeah, and then also a lot of black women have been bullied for their features, like their lips, their nose, and their eyes. I know that white people also experience bullying, and like I know that it exists, but it doesn't exist at this like systematic level. Obviously, if you're white and Jewish, that's a completely different topic. But in the case of Miss Bregoli, nobody has suppressed her. There hasn't been this systematic pressure to suppress how she is naturally, And I get it. Like nowadays, the like I said, beauty is being skewed in a new, different way, and people want to. Obviously, everybody wants to be beautiful. Like, I get it, but like the difference between the two is that yeah, I already explained it, but also we have to also realize that Bergoli's what the image that Bergoli is perpetuating isn't only damaging in terms of like racial dialogue, it's also damaging when it comes to like the black community, right? Because time and time again, when people want to emulate black features, they emulate like I said, the light-skinned black woman, right? And this further perpetuates the idea that being a light-skinned black woman is better than being a dark-skinned black woman, right? It's like they want the dark-skin features, but like with the light with the with the smaller nose, basically. Yeah. So like it's harmful from so many different angles. And I guess Lil Kim doesn't get a like a hall pass either. Her actions are also harmful because she is feeding into the narrative that has been taught to black people, to dark skinned black women for so long, which is that they are not beautiful and will never be beautiful unless they have this this image of, unless unless their look is in close proximity to being white. Okay, so like, to be honest, both of these women are actually victims of society and like the messaging that we're all sending out to people. However, Danielle Bregoli has the choice not to participate in it. You can say that Lil Kim also doesn't have the choice to participate in it, but let's be real here, okay? The only successful person out of Destiny Childs is Beyonce. Wait, no, I did not say that. Kelly's also successful too. But you see, like, we all know that in the world, people who look closer to white they often get further, and the darker you are, the harder you have to work. So even though it may seem like Lil Kim had a choice, in a way she really kind of didn't, right? So yeah, that's how these two people, even though it seems like they're both doing the same thing, are actually, they're not doing the same thing. Like, Daniel Bergoli can still lead a good, happy life and a successful life without having to change her looks. Whereas with Lil Kim, if she decides not to change her look, if she decides to stay true to herself, her chances of succeeding are like greatly diminished. Obviously, things are changing in this regard, but things are not changing fast enough. So yeah, that's my take on why Daniel Bergoli and Little Kim, although it may like, on why Daniel Bergoli and Little Kim are basically doing two different things, even though it may seem like they're doing the exact same thing. They're not, okay? One has a choice, and the other, yeah, doesn't really have that much of a choice if they want to do well.